Too much subject matter, I think, for the next couple of years is not good. You know, people are suffering. You know, they don't really need. They don't need only comedy.
How about the scene? How about the scene where he goes into the basement and the senator's in there with his daughter, and he's got the chest plate on, and the whole versus that.
Unbelievable.
My Johnson, talking about his Johnson, yeah, and his daughter's right there.
It's terrible. We have a friend in London who's now, Jay Joplin, he's like 45. I guess they might have broken up by now. But he was with Lily Allen, and he just was divorcing. He's 45, the biggest art dealer in the world, the White Keep Gallery in the UK. And he was sleeping with this actor, Kevin Allen's child.
It's his daughter.
Right? It's Lily Allen. So Kevin calls Jay up. They've known each other forever because they're all. Jay represents Damien Hirst. Damien Hirst is best friends with Lily Allen's father. He used to deal coke at the Groucho.
This is really
it was just
like
party
a big
time
grade
as well.
on the making.
So that's really
inside
good.
me. Jesus, gotta watch what she asked.
So what happened was Kevin Allen calls up Jay and says, you know, you're with my daughter or whatever, you know, that kind of thing. And says, no problem. It's like, you know, when Angelica, your daughter's 15, I'll be there, no problem. You know what I mean? It's a little weird when that happens. So he calls him up and says, well, when your little girl's 15, I'll be there. No problem, Jay.
Are we ready to start this? Is this
Not yet. You want to get it
away?
close?
Well, we might as well
Okay,
just
we'll
start.
do it.
There's nothing wrong with a quick change, is there?
Okay, well, all right.
Just get that tapping.
Okay, so here we are.
Wishful thinking, Mr. Hamill.
Okay, so you're playing
That would be good.
Howard Hendricks in The Killer Inside Me. And he's the,
She's going to answer the questions before she actually asks them.
Well, she needs clarification.
and he's the DA.
So I'm playing, you want me to do the EPK style? Question answer?
Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, we don't really do it that way, but
No, it doesn't seem like this. It doesn't seem like you do anything in that conventional way. Yes, I'm playing Howard Hendricks, the district attorney.
And it's in a small town. And you're basically, I'd say, described as the outsider. You're the newcomer to this small town with a small population. What is that like for your character that comes into this town?
One of the things that interested me about the script when I first read it was where it took place and the idea of the small town, and someone that has lived there for 7 years is still considered an outsider. I grew up in a small town, and the politics of a small town can become the politics of a small town can create a law within itself, and the subject matter of the film is about crime and justice in a lot of ways, and who can get away with what within this environment. And there's a lot of parallels in my own life growing up in a small town of people that got away with stuff that shouldn't have necessarily got away with stuff. Obviously not to this degree.
That's absolutely true, because the town has a way of watching its own. And you come in, and the town's had like 20 years of history with Lou Ford, the deputy sheriff, and
Lou's family as well was, you know, he grew up in the town. His father was a doctor in the town, prominent figure within the town.
Yeah.
And I think the small town makes for the pressure cooker environment of the film. The idea of Howard Hendricks within as a device within the plot is that he is an outsider that is not yet trusted within the community, and he's also suspicious of Lou Ford from the get-go. And I think it's more of a rivalry in a sense that Lou Ford is from the family of, is the son of a doctor in the small town, is loved and has grown up in the town and everyone knows him, and I'm an outsider who has worked to the station that he's in his life. And I think Howard is suspicious of the graces that Lou is afforded because he's a local.
And the way that small towns operate, they control their own. So in some ways, there's a message to the movie that pertains to today. The idea of, America having gone through the Bushes and, and gone on to the present president, and the idea of sort of towns monitoring themselves, people monitoring themselves, people sort of relying on their own morals to keep everything under control. But as an outsider, you can't accept that. Your character just seems to rub everybody the wrong way. And yet, at the same time, you're the one who's sort of coming in and the audience discovers the plot through you in some ways. They see the characters, but they also watch the village. And they watch the plot unfold in terms of the suspense and how the plot closes in on the murderer at large in this small town. So what do you think is the reason why you took the role? It resonated with you and the small town controls. Is it something that you wanted to say as far as, that enough is enough and that these towns need to really have, sort of outside people coming in on a regular basis, like Raisin in the Sun with Sidney Poitier, or this one, Jim Thompson's. Do you think that there's some message to it?
Yeah, there's certainly, we embrace the understanding of a community creates its own law and its own sort of justice, and within that community, unless there is people from the outside coming in, who's going to balance and who's going to counter any sort of arguments, who's going to be the devil's advocate within politically within an environment where everyone is in the same group. I guess you could relate that to this story. What I liked about the script and the book is that they say that there's only 7 stories, and we've seen stories about killers before. We've never really seen a story where the protagonist is the killer, and in a way, I don't think we necessarily root for him, but we are in his mind's eye and we follow him, and the story is told in an interesting way. Whereas the Howard Hendricks character, who represents justice in a lot of ways, is really the antagonist to the protagonist, and there's an inverted way of telling this story, and it's that and the gothic nature of it, the fact that it is Middle America in the mid-50s, where there's a particular social courtesy that has to be that's embraced within the script and the language that we use in the script. So to balance those things, you can't just up and rally like people would now. The idea of free speech is not necessarily all free in the environment of the killer inside me. So I am the outsider, and I am, in a lot of ways, in this inverted story, sort of the bad guy to the protagonist. But not the bad guy, obviously. I liked that it's a flip on the way to tell this story.
And why did you, when you worked with Michael Winterbottom, he wanted you to be part of the project quite early on. He met you soon after casting Casey Affleck, and I think he wanted to cast women first before he knew what was going on. And he was so enthusiastic about working with you. He kept bringing you up and kept repeating over and over, he's the right guy. Because you are different from the other actors. I think your technique is different as well when you prepare for a role. How do you do that?
How do I prepare?
Yeah.
With this one, it was interesting and difficult because the character always read to me older in the book, and Michael is interesting in the way he approaches, well, certainly the way he's approached talking with me about it. He likes to talk about it a little to a point and try to keep it as lucid and open and sometimes as vague as possible so that there's room to play around and reinterpret what we're doing when we're doing it, which is liberating, and sometimes for an actor that likes to be well prepared, it's frightening. But he's good, and I think I kind of understood why he cast me. I think it creates more of a contentious sort of peer pressure between the character that Casey plays and the character that I play. We're both. My take on it was that we were both guys similar-ish in age, working our way up. I realised that I'm an outsider. He's embraced and loved by the community that seems to be sort of fighting under his class and his weight as a deputy sheriff. And I'm a guy that's from a very working class family that's worked his way up and has political aspirations. And really the only way I got up, I think, is by embracing the politics of the town and buddying up with Chester Conway. Basically being his step and go fetch it guy.
Right, the rich guy in town.
Right.
Mr. Big.
Which brings another dynamic to the thing we were talking about before about small towns and the politics within a small town.
Right, and controlling the whole village and at the same time trying to uncover the killer inside the plot. But when it happened with Michael that I think he leaves the actors a lot of rein. But the other actors, like working with Casey Affleck, his style is possibly different from yours. He seems maybe method, and you are a bit of method, a bit of everything. You use whatever you can. Is that more how you do it?
Yeah, I don't know how method Casey is. Yeah, ask him that one.
Yeah.
Everyone has a method, right? And,
right. Yeah.
I think with Casey is method, I think, in the sense that he likes to, he certainly liked to establish between the two of us a sort of a distance and a space. And that has translated in an interesting way when we're shooting. I use and sort of play around with whatever technique works at the time. I'm not I don't really like to set anything in stone or be married to any kind of technique.
But it's this sort of movie where it's a film noir. It's got a lot of men in it. It's the director's first movie in the U.S. It's basically sort of like a film noir murder. It's
Mighty Heart.
Mighty Heart wasn't shot in the U.S.
Some of it's in Texas.
What about that 4042? What is the one with
24-Hour Party People?
No. Tim Robbins and
I think they shot one scene there.
Men of Violence
No, they
movies?
said
Come on.
this is his first. He only shot a few scenes in the U.S.
what, Code 46?
He only shot a few scenes in the U.S., he said.
On that one? Oh, really?
Ever in the U.S. This is first.
That's true.
But what I'm trying to say is that this is a man's movie. This is kind of at a time in America where it's kind of a man's world. And there's sexuality in this film that's being uncovered. As you said, you're different from the Lou Ford character, who seems to be dredging up sexually provocative and sort of